Well, hello and welcome. We are live taking your questions today, and you're joining us for the mini-series on increasing engagement, motivation, and morale in EMS. My name is Robie McHugh.
I'm Lisa Girizzi.
And we are here with a special, two special guests. You're today going to get, I guess, the insider show here to a demonstration of coaching. And what we've been talking about this week is adopting a coaching mindset.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it's really helpful for people to see what that might look like in action. We all have different ideas about what does that even mean. And we talked a lot about it yesterday in yesterday's session. But, I think a lot of people, I know I'm like this, is when I see something and I witness it and then I can ask questions about it, there's a lot better chance that I'll actually do it or understand it better. And so that's what we're hoping for today. We have two people. We have two people who have just really graciously and generously volunteered to be coached today, and they are bringing issues that they're dealing with, and you and I are going to coach them live so that people can see what that is and what it looks like. And then I just want to ask people to sort of listen a particular way, Robbie, if that's okay, to just sort of, as our two guests, we're going to talk to them individually, as they share whatever it is they want help with. It's really easy for our own mind to go to, well, here's what I would do. Or, well, I had that happen and this is what worked for me. Which again is natural, but we're inviting people to really listen today a little bit differently. We're asking people to really listen for, sort of two things. One is, how might what we're talking to these two guests about, how might it apply, in whatever situation you're dealing with? And then the second thing is to sort of watch how you and I are interacting with these two guests. The things we're saying, the things we're doing, just to see if you can notice, like, what's working, what's new, what's something that you see that maybe you've never tried. Like, we want people to take this as an opportunity to really learn what coaching might look like. And, that's my hope for today.
That's great. And as we've said before, to be a great leader is to be a great coach. That's why we're doing this mini series this week. We have a free webinar coming up on Monday, all about recruitment and retention, being the leader people want to follow. So if you're watching this webinar, if you're watching us live, if you're watching the replay, we know you're in the right place. So Lisa, I guess we'll bring on our first guest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, Jamie. Thanks again for joining us and being so willing to be open about this and joining us today.
Glad to. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
it's great. So just to kind of set the stage, we haven't really had much chance to talk about this. So although we talked a few days ago, the intention today is really for Robbie and I to work with you to see if there's a new way of thinking that we can bring to the challenge that you have. The point of coaching is really collaboration. It's co-creating, right? It's not about Robbie and I having good ideas that we tell you go do them, right? We all know how to do that. I mean, if you're married, you know how to do that, right? If you're in a relationship, you know how to tell people what to do. You have children. This is really about exploring and discovering, and not necessarily going for the quick or new answer. I'm sorry, the quick or right answer, but really seeing what fits. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and you're welcome to tell us as much or as little as you want, or whatever you feel comfortable with. And if any time what we're working on doesn't feel like it fits for you, that's okay too. Okay, so we're all in this together. So what can we talk about for the next 15, 20 minutes that would make the biggest difference for you in your role, in what you're dealing with?
I think one of the challenges that we're facing right now, and it hasn't become a challenge, but I'm just trying to prevent it from becoming an issue, is I started here in April of 2020 as the new chief everything. When I come in, we changed everything, the culture to the station, you name it, it's been changed. Well, now after that has happened and things are starting to settle in, the newness is wearing off. And my concern or what I want to avoid is that now that the newness is gone, we're going to revert back to that old culture. And the new people that we've brought in, how do we keep them engaged and keep them interested in becoming, keeping our service growing?
Got that. And so a question I have is, what do you think worked over the last, however long it is, not quite a year, 10 months or something, that allowed all these changes to take place? And it sounds like people were pretty receptive to them. What do you think were some of the things that worked about that?
I think, we've gone from a volunteer service to a combination. Having somebody here consistently has made a huge difference. Trying to keep a positive attitude just in general, and keeping people focused on really what our goal is, and it's patient care. And sometimes we forget that's what we're all here for, is patient care.
Yeah.
So I think that's worked really well, and restructuring our training and updating our policies and procedures and all that stuff, to put in some consistency has what I think's really worked well.
Yeah. So it sounds like consistency, and also having like a unified vision. I mean, you didn't say it that way, but you said having people's attention on what's the most important thing, which is patient care, right? So that's what I would call like unified vision, right? Everybody's sort of in the same thing. And what makes you think that people might become complacent or fall back into old patterns, or like, what are you seeing, or what are you anticipating? I'm curious.
I don't know if I have an exact answer on that. It's I think a lot of it's going to come down to me and our leadership team to keep that focus and that drive, and offering the opportunities to be there for our members. Where if we kind of fall back and kind of, things are going fine, and just let things go, it'll be easier for the membership to just kind of fall into that pattern as well. So I guess that's what I'm looking for, is ideas to kind of keep things fresh and new, and continue that excitement. Yeah,
because it is easy, isn't it, to just fall back. Well, it's good. There's a famous quote from the book Good to Great that good is the enemy of great, right? When things are good, we don't go for great. We don't go for excellence, right? Yeah, okay, good. Right. Robbie, what questions do you have? Anything you want to?
Not right now.
Okay, good. So one of the things that I hear is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say was that the consistency and the focus on the patient care is the number one thing. Have you done any, I don't know, sort of interviews of people, maybe in your leadership team or in the membership, or it sounds like you have a hybrid staff. Have you done any kind of interviews of people to say, what are they in it? Why are they here, and what do they see as possible? Like, if they had a vision of the future, what are they interested in?
I think the committee that has been working on our policy and procedure manual, we've had that discussion. I haven't had any formal discussions with our membership as far as what their visions are. I think that's something that is coming, that we are going to have those discussions to make sure that their ideas are heard, because I certainly don't have the answers and never claim to. Yeah. So I want to offer that out to everybody. It's, how do you go about doing that in a structured way that is going to be valuable for our leadership team to take what they say and apply it. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I'm looking for guidance.
Yeah. And I think that's brilliant. So I just really want to acknowledge you for that, because if you only ask the question without any idea of what you're going to do with the answer, it's not, it can actually make things worse. There's been studies done on companies that do surveys and then do nothing with the answer. And people are like, I feel like their time was wasted, like there needs to be some kind of structure. And full disclosure, I sent you a copy of our book after our conversation the other day, right?
Yep.
So, and I'm not saying this to promote our book, although it's awesome. There are exercises in there that I actually highlighted for you, which are interviews and interview questions that have people focus on what's possible versus even thinking about what's wrong or and I, your organization may be a little different because you've just gone through this great transformation where people have wanted to be a part of it and people are really engaged. So it's kind of like the what's next is now that we have a foundation, we've built this foundation. What do we want to create next? So creating a way to interview people. And we usually recommend to people that the leadership take on interviewing people, but then asking those people that you interview to interview other people so that it has a ripple effect. So you guys aren't doing all the interviews and you ask people to take notes and like that. And then there, you look for what are the themes and what are people interested in. And, it's great if you can get everybody in a room or most people in a room and sort of course, pre-COVID, right? Maybe a Zoom.
Right.
But you get, people engaged in like, what are we going to create? And Robbie's favorite question and mine too is, if anything were possible, what would we do if we didn't have to worry about funding, if we didn't have to worry about time and recruitment and all that other stuff that we get bogged down with? What do we just want to create?
Right.
Because when you create that powerful vision, people's creativity starts to go crazy. Like they just want to create and they just think of different ideas. And then you don't have to worry about the newness wearing off.
I guess one of my concerns is, with this topic, which is a great idea. And I think it's something that we're probably going to do here shortly, is we have 30 people that come up with 30 different brilliant ideas. How do we harness that energy? And we can only do so much at a time. How do we say we take 3 or 4 of those ideas and start implementing them? What do we do with those other 20 some ideas to make those people feel like they're not slighted and being ignored because we're focusing on 2 or 3 others? How do we keep that balance to try and keep everybody happy and engaged?
Well, I can tell you one strategy, and maybe Robbie will have another one. I have one strategy that a leader actually who spoke at our first summit, Tom Amell, he talks about it in his presentation from the 2019 summit. Is he had over 300 employees, and he went on a listening tour in his first 6 months of being the CEO, and he basically met with 25 people at a time and got all the things they wanted to do. They put them all up on newsprint. And he said he had 3 buckets. And one was we're going to do these right away. They're easy fixes. They're low cost, high impact, great ideas. And we can all just say, yep, we're going to do that. Then he had the sort of under advisement, right? Like, these are good ideas. These are worth keeping. These are ones we want to work on. We're going to figure out like priority wise. And he formed committees to deal with that. He didn't decide. He formed committees to figure out like the viability of doing those different things or whatever. And then the third bucket was we're not doing that. And he said it in a way that I thought people would get offended, but it really was just being straight about why that idea didn't work. Now, Tom Amell's with a bank, right? So there was like some things that were just financially crazy. People would say things like lower the rate on CDs. And he'd be like, no. Here's why we're not going to do that. And he would explain it because they just didn't know, right? So there's a lot that, you know, as the chief or your leadership team, you have privy to information people don't have. So once people understand that, like, you don't just dismiss the idea out of hand, but you help people understand that. Like, let me tell you why this idea right now in this, you know, whatever, here's why. Most people can let it go then. They're like, oh, now I get it, right?
Sure.
So that's one thought, one idea. But you can also, you know, invite people to be engaged and help us figure out which of these ideas are the ones we should, you know, put our eggs in that basket.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And similar to what Lisa said, I mean, if you're able to get those people in a Zoom conference, or eventually we're able to get people in a room again, being able to have people maybe vote with their feet, right? So they may come up with a good idea, and then we say, okay, out of these 30 different ideas, everybody like put a Post-it note or a star, put your name next to the idea that you want to vote for. And then we just take the top 3 to 5 areas, and that's what we're going to focus on now. It doesn't mean a year from now we can't look at those other issues. Another great interview at the 2019 EMS Leadership Summit was Melissa Vandergriff. She was the head of continuous improvement at one of the hospitals at the Cleveland Clinic. And she talked about doing these mini workshops, this idea of process improvement and continuous improvement that I think is just so brilliant, bringing people together and getting their perspective on what areas could be improved. Now, again, I know we've talked a lot about fixing problems versus creating a new future. Maybe you're interested in more creating that new future, but if one of those ideas is, well, we want to have better patient care, or we want to ensure patient care is at a certain level, having kind of this subgroup of people to look at, well, what are the issues? And using the A3 method, or what they taught in this workshop. I've done this workshop before, and I mean, people had in this short, I'd say 1 hour session we had 30 different ideas brainstormed by people. Like, here's all the different areas, here's all the pain points. We kind of went over, like, here's what we're looking for. We're looking for areas of waste. We're looking for areas of where we're wasting people's time, or we're wasting resources. And it really created this like brainstorming session of here's all the pain points of everyone that everyone's experiencing. And then we just took one of those kind of off the wall, and we would focus on that. And if you can give the group a framework to work through, and it allows them to keep coming back to, well, how do you really want it to be? What's the ideal scenario? Mm-hmm. And I love when Lisa talks about British Airways and how they approach this idea of they were working on the subject of how do we stop lost baggage and luggage. They were having this huge issue. And some of the consultants came in, I believe, and were so focused on the lost luggage issue, it actually made it a little bit worse, because you get more of what you focus on. So they actually eventually brought in someone that had a background in appreciative inquiry, and talked about the idea of, well, how do you really want it to be? Like, if you had a magic wand, would your perfect scenario be you really just want less lost baggage? And the group thought about it and were like, oh, that is kind of ridiculous. They came up with, we want an exceptional arrival experience. And there's where they started to focus on what in the natural byproduct of an exceptional arrival experience is there's no lost luggage.
That's right.
So again, it's so powerful when you think about what are the questions you're asking? What is the future you're focused on? Is the future you're focused on what you really want? Or is it just something you're trying to fix? And we've said before, in the absence of a great dream, pettiness prevails. So you as a leader, your job is to keep that great dream constantly growing and constantly moving forward, keeping people excited about that. And hopefully that kind of worry about reverting back to old culture, like you're saying, will not be as much of a worry. So
yeah. Can I add one other thing? But go ahead, Jamie. You first.
Well, so kind of how I'm envisioning this, or what you're saying here, is if we went back and really focused on what we want to do, and that's good patient care, and we've kind of noticed this in the last couple months, is our changes in training and our training, or how we're talking just in general about our patients. We've seen that change of people becoming a bit more interested. So we really went to the core value that we have, and that's good patient care. And it is kind of starting to unfold and kind of becoming all encompassing at the same time. So
Yeah.
I get the analogy, and it's actually a very good analogy.
Yeah. And when you think about that, like every decision you guys get to make, or you gentlemen, guys, everyone in your organization, men and women, who, it's like when you have to make a decision, you go, how does this affect great patient care or good patient care, right? And so that becomes the vision that determines what you do and don't do, because that's like your guiding vision, your guiding principle. And the other thought I had when Robbie was talking was, one way I think that might be helpful to kind of keep the excitement alive is by sharing these great patient outcomes. Like people love stories, and people relate to stories, and when you do you share with people anything you find out, or like you get positive feedback, you share it with people, you make sure it gets out. Every person hears about it. Hey, and then that changes what people are talking about. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Instead of, talking about and gossiping, they're talking about, oh my God, did you hear this great story about this, what we did, what we got together and did.
Absolutely.
And it might be an opportunity too, to interview some patients you've had and talk to them about their experience, and just start to listen to those people and what's important to them. Because what we think is important to the patient, we've got one perspective. What they think is important may be how their family was treated, or were they kept informed. Could be something as simple as, were they taken out in a hospital sheet and blanket, or were they actually bundled up to the point where like a windbreaking kind of raft during the winter? Like I'm sure there's a lot of layers to the phrase good patient care, and maybe just get curious about that. What does that look like? What are other people's ideas of what does good patient care look like?
Yeah. Is it an exceptional arrival experience, or is it a, lost baggage? Really? I mean, how you talk about it matters. So, Jamie, thank you so much. Was this helpful?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank God you said yes. Really, really, really appreciate you. And again, congratulations on the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you.
You've really creating something where you are, and I'm so happy that that you got to be a part of this, and we hope that it continues to help. And if there's anything else we can do, please stay in touch.
Oh, absolutely. Again, thank you for your time. It's a team effort. I'm just glad that I'm part of it, and look forward to continuing.
Well, please pass our congratulations on to the whole team.
Will do. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Before we bring Corey on, did you want to?
Well, again, just updating folks. This is part 3 of our mini series on increasing engagement, motivation, and morale. Lisa, maybe you could just share with people kind of what we've done this week with our part 1 and part 2 sessions that we've done the last few days. Yeah,
part 1 was really focused on what we say is the biggest bang for your buck, if you will, if you want to create a shift in your culture or the environment. We hear so much of the time that people say, that's the way we've always done it, or people are negative, or, and people want to change behavior, and they think that the way to change behavior is individual. And I mean, ultimately there is that impact, but really you want to create an environment that calls forth people's best. And I think in the example with Jamie, with him having everything focused not on people's personalities or personal issues, but good patient care, right? Like that was the focus. So everything was about that. It wasn't personal. It wasn't about Joe being lazy or Sally being, difficult or whatever. No, it was about patient care. Let's get everything aligned around good patient care. And so the first session was really about shifting from a fixing mindset to a coaching mindset. And if you're in a coaching mindset, that means that you're looking for ways to grow and develop yourself and grow and develop the people around you. And everything looks like an opportunity to do that versus another problem to solve or another pain in the ass to deal with. It's like, this is about creating what you want and co-creating it, right? It's not about, like Jamie said, he doesn't think he has the answers, and he shouldn't, right? He has one point of view. And so to be able to look out and say, who else has input here? Who else has ideas for how to do this? So that was one. And then yesterday, we actually took each of the points from the first day and we dove deeper with each one. We talked more about what it meant and then how to create an implementation plan. First, you look at what's worked, like where are the places where you're already doing it? Where are the places where you're already, for example, listening with curiosity? That was one of the points, right? Who do you find that easy to do with? And then what can you learn from that? And then what areas need improvement? And then when you identify that area that needs improvement, you ask yourself, what's the smallest step I could take towards moving towards that, towards creating more of what I want? And so we went through that point by point. And then today we're here to demonstrate what having a coaching conversation actually looks like, right? And there are elements to it. It's not the same as a traditional conversation about, what's it like being a chief, or what's it like, what are you dealing with? Oh, let me tell you what I'm dealing with, right? There are specific elements to a coaching conversation. And hopefully, you could see where I both of us were coming from this place of really consciously listening to what did Jamie have to say? What is his take on the issue? Asking permission. Is it okay if I offer you some ideas? Is it okay if I, do you want help with that? Right? And Jamie was a yes. That's why he came on. So, and then taking responsibility for how it goes. It's not about Jamie being open or Joe being open or anybody. It's about, who am I being? How is Robie interacting? How am I interacting? Are we owning that we have ideas? And it's fine if they don't resonate, then that's okay too, right? And then getting curious, right? And that's something you have to do throughout the whole process, is really getting curious about the other person's point of view. How are they hearing what you're saying? Letting go of the know-it-all. I know this already. I already know how to figure it out. Here's the answer. Really letting that go. And then acknowledging people, for their commitment, for their willingness to be in the conversation. And then sharing ideas, but not like, oh, here's what you should do. Here's what needs to get done. We instantly shut down when people should on us. We just do. And so instead, like, here's you may have noticed when I offered Jamie the idea of the different buckets that Tom talks about. I said, here's one option. This isn't the right answer, but here's one option, right? Because when you say it that way, then how he can listen is, I wonder if that would work. Or he might take bits and pieces of it, or I'll try this, but that, this part maybe not, but that part, right? So it allows the creative part of our minds to really flourish.
All great advice. All right. I'd like to bring on our next guest here. All right. Corey, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How
sorry
are
about
you?
that video. We have everybody in the house on the internet because we're snowed in. So.
Oh, not a problem. We just appreciate that you're here. So we understand that you have an area that you want to talk about. So do you want to just share a little bit about that? What you feel
Yes,
comfortable
absolutely. So currently I'm an EMS supervisor and I'm getting ready to move to another battalion within the same department. I was just wondering, what are some initial actions I should take to kind of facilitate the culture that we've talked about? And then I'm also hopefully, I'm on the list to be for battalion chief. Is there a difference in doing that for battalion versus EMS supervisor? And then if we can squeeze this in, because I know those are pretty in-depth conversations, with everybody has a lot of things going on at home. And the age-old saying is leave home at home and work at work, but it's sometimes it's able to be done, but sometimes it's not, and just how to deal with that.
Yeah. So can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So when you say you're about to change, so you're currently a EMS supervisor and you're going to be going into a different battalion, and that you then may, become battalion chief. Fingers crossed. We're rooting for you.
Thank you.
You're an EMS supervisor now. What do you think has had you be successful in this current role?
I try and remain as open-minded as possible. I try to look at it from the provider's perspective of how things are going. I try and be very approachable so that they can feel free to converse with me and express opinions or what may be working, what may not be working, and try and be as knowledgeable about everything as I can. Obviously, I can't be about everything, but as much as I can to be, if nothing else, a source for them to come to if they need to about anything department related or EMS related or anything in general.
And what makes you think it's going to be different when you go to the other battalion? In other words, I'm not saying it's going to be different, but that you need something besides all of that.
Well, I guess my thought process is I'm coming into a new battalion, so it's kind of not necessarily a fresh start because your reputation kind of precedes you. But going into the new battalion, it kind of does give me I could kind of start from scratch and begin implementing a lot of the stuff that we've talked about before, and just how to, going back to some of the past, taking one bite at a time from an elephant. Mm-hmm. Same for this. And also going back is I can always improve. So just trying to improve in general.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I mostly asked the question because I want to make sure I understand what you're looking for. And I think that's important when you're coaching someone, is to not assume that, whatever I'm hearing is exactly what you meant, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, personally, I think that one thing that can be helpful, and again, this is an option. This is not like, oh, this is what you should do, but this is more like just thinking about, what I've heard has been helpful, what I've found helpful, is I think when you go into a new environment, it's really helpful to listen a lot more than you think you need to. Like really being curious. And, I'm going to go back to Tom Amel's story about, here he was brought in as the CEO. And the first thing he did is went on a listening tour, and he went to every single employee that he had came to one of these meetings of 25 or so people. And, he would ask them, what do you want me to do? What do you think would improve the bank? And he said it was funny because a lot of people thought, well, why did they hire this guy? He doesn't know what he's doing, But what he wanted to know, he had his ideas about how it was going to go, but he wanted to know, what was he missing? What didn't he know? He had done his due diligence about the bank and taking this job on, but he wanted to know from the ground level up, what were people's perceptions? What did they see worked? What did they see? And I just think that is a brilliant strategy. I'm not saying you have to meet with every single person, but, coming in like we already know what they need, I think occurs for the people who are there as disrespectful or something, like, oh, you think we've been waiting for you to save us? So I just think there's a lot to be gained from doing a lot of listening.
Good to go. That makes good sense.
And frankly, Corey, who wouldn't want to work for a boss who was open-minded, who was approachable, who's asking their people that they're responsible for what's working, what's not working, and just being open-minded, like you're saying. So I think you're absolutely on the right path. I mean, obviously you were promoted to this position of leadership, probably for a good reason. Again, most organizations may just promote what they think is the best paramedic, and maybe that was a little bit of the old way of doing things in a sense. But I think organizations are starting to hopefully recognize people that have these strengths, that are dealing well with people. And because it's our biggest asset in any organization, right? It's the people in the organization. We've talked about before that unfortunately there's a lot of organizations that have budgets for stretchers, monitors, maintenance, building maintenance, vehicle maintenance. Often what's missing is the people maintenance part of that. We hope organizations are going to start investing more in their people, in their supervisors. And thankfully, they've got somebody that's decided to invest in themselves, and that's coachable and that's open. So definitely acknowledge you for being that type of leader that for your organization.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. One other thing that comes to mind, Corey, from, again, I think this is true for whether you're, get the battalion chief job or the EMS supervisor job, which we know you have. I also think being really interested in what people's personal goals or professional goals are, when you talk to them and find out not only what do they see as missing, or what do they see needs to be created, or what their vision is for the organization. I think it's really important to ask people, what do they see their role is in the organization 5 years from now, or 2 years from now, or whatever, right? Like if we created, like when we were coaching Jamie, we talked about creating a vision. But let's say, they created something like exceptional patient care, best in the state. I don't know, making that up, right? And the next question I would want to ask is, what do you see your role in that would be? Right? Because you want to find out from people, like, do they see themselves in a future leadership position? Do they want to move on to maybe a different level of a paramedic? Maybe they want to be a flight paramedic, or maybe they want to, go to medical school. Who knows, right? So if you can find out what they're interested in and what their goals are professionally, then you can be an ally and a partner in helping them, not only by, if you hear something, passing it along, but also in terms of how you delegate responsibility, right? If you see delegating as part of developing people, it's really helpful to know what people's goals are and what they really want to, what are they moving toward? Because then when you're going to delegate something, you can say, oh, this person, I don't know, whatever they maybe want to be, they want to be a leader of something. And then you go, oh, well, this is one way they can grow their leadership skills, right? By taking this job on or taking that responsibility on. And then you can link that up for them so that they can actually use it as an opportunity to build and develop themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. And I was trying to write down as much as I could.
Don't forget, it's being recorded, so you can listen to it.
Another thought to add on to what Lisa's saying is, I think it's a lot. Some organizations out there have performance evaluations, whether they're annually or twice a year. It may be an opportunity to talk either to your organization or just talk to your battalion about, would they be open to maybe, sometimes it's termed a one-on-one session, right? We talk a lot about coaching, but it could be in the context of just a one-on-one goal setting session, or some people may want to just talk about developing a learning plan for themselves, when like actually writing out these goals. And then you're there as the leader that could support them. You could point them and direct them. Or if you hear about an opportunity coming up for maybe something in technical rescue, you could direct them and say, hey, there's this great group that's doing some technical rescue training. I know you said you were interested in that. Is that something you'd like an introduction to? So I think you may be able to create a structure too of taking, I think, performance evaluations to the next level, taking it more as like development planning for folks.
Yes. Yeah, we're big advocates for growth and development plans for people because, human beings, we really are learning machines, and we just forget, and I think it's really helpful when you have a partner, you have somebody who is looking out for your future, right? And is your partner in that. And I think as certainly study after study has shown is that people stay where they feel cared for, right? People give their best where they feel cared for. And again, it's not like you're doing it just so that they do that, but it just kind of, it goes hand in hand, right?
Absolutely.
Lisa, what do we want to say, or how would we approach this? The second topic that Corey had a question about is dealing with folks, that whole phrase, leaving kind of home at home. How do you deal with folks that maybe Corey, if I'm hearing you right, it's people that, they're kind of off their game a bit. You're noticing as a leader that something's going on and trying to walk the fine line between opening up Pandora's box or just kind of turning away and walking away. I mean, how do you think, Lisa, we should deal with those situations?
Well, I think it's multifaceted because part of me, let's face it, a lot of people are overwhelmed and overstressed right now, and it's people's mental health is being taxed. And so I am not a big proponent of, leave your problems at home, not in this field, because it's too dangerous for people to be feeling like they're left and they have nobody, so, I'm not saying that that's true in every situation. I'm just saying overall as a general statement, I think that we need to have eyes for when people are struggling. And help them either connect with you or someone professionally if they need to, or perhaps a mentor, someone who maybe has been through what they've been through. Again, our job as leaders is not to be therapists and not to be, help give advice about people's personal lives. That's not what we're here for. At the same time, I don't think we can ignore when someone's suffering and they're, if there's overstressed or, what's going on at home, especially now. I mean, how do you leave work at home when you're literally, there's a door between you and your children schooling, right? And your husband or significant other is working in the next room and you're like, don't use the Zoom, I'm using it, and then your computer crashes, So, I don't know. I just really think that we need to have compassion. And I'm not saying lower standards. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we can have compassion for where somebody's at, ask them if they want help with it, and then find someone who can help them. I'm not saying it should be you, right? Sometimes EAP gets a bad name, employee assistance programs, but sometimes they're great. They can help somebody find childcare. They can help somebody find care for their elderly parents if they need to, or, there's just a world of resources out there that a lot of people don't know about. And they're let's face the facts that EMS is notorious for thinking they have to do everything themselves, right? Because you're, often doing that.
This is another, I think, great example of what Dr. Intevity talked about out of Florida as a EMS medical director. And he talks about his department and how they brought in psychologists and folks that were trained in mental health, but they brought him into the organization as an opportunity for them to become part of the team. And then, so they actually went through kind of a boot camp academy of the program. So they had community providers or those professionals that, most of them, I think now have to have a doctorate in psychology and mental health. And they became part of the department and were available to respond, and they did ride-alongs, and it was just a very unique opportunity for you to have kind of a mental health professional embedded in your team, in your organization, so that if something really bad does happen, and when the Parkland school shooting happened, they had those professionals embedded in the team to be part of the response and actually responded to the scene afterwards. And we're there to help people talk. A lot of the folks that I've talked to that have been doing critical incident stress debriefings for the last 30, 40 years have said we've evolved to the point where it shouldn't just wait till a meeting. If people aren't willing to go to one of these stress debriefings and they're just willing to talk about some of the difficult challenges they're dealing with, that's some of the best, obviously not professional advice, but it's some of the best medicine we have is just listening to folks, just hearing them out, letting them talk out the situation, how it went. Because I think if we're a good provider, we're probably constantly second guessing, did we do everything that we could do? Was that the right thing to do? Was that the right treatment? Was that the right drug? Was that the right outcome we wanted? So it's just, I think you're in a unique position to, again, just listen to what people are saying and ask them. I've attended some psychological first aid classes that are out there too, which are really interesting, especially with added stress in an organization, and just being willing to ask somebody, are they thinking about harming themselves? It takes a real brave person to say that, but I don't think you want to be the person that second guess yourself. And, after something bad does happen, do you think, well, maybe I should have said something? So being brave enough to ask the question, I think is also a great skill. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other thing I would say is, what if each department had a well-being officer, right? And they wouldn't necessarily have to be a therapist, right? But they know about all the well-being, mental health in the community, like what's available. Like they're like the, if you want nutrition information, this well-being officer knows all the people to go for, like just somebody who has those resources in-house. Every community has free resources. There's so many free resources online that are good, but how do you know, right? But if you have one person whose job it is in the organization is to, filter through that stuff and discover, like, what are the things that are worthwhile? What are the things that are kind of crappy? You know what I mean? I just think it would make if we're really committed to people's well-being, and I think we are, then we need to assign somebody, like, or not assign them, but have somebody be in that kind of a position, right?
Yeah. This is actually the Parkland Coral Springs Fire Department Ambulance Service. The Dr. Antevi's organization created a chief position that was just in charge of health and safety. And they didn't try to add it to somebody else's plate that's already probably got a full plate.
Right.
Because if you're in this industry, I'm sure you like full plates.
We're always stuffed with so much to do. Has this been helpful, Corey? I mean, is this in line with what you were looking for?
It is. And some of the stuff we do and I do, and there was a few things that I can add, which is very helpful.
That's
so
great.
Thank you.
And please let us know how it goes. Number one, we'd love to hear about your promotion to battalion chief. Either way, we love to hear it. We'll either tell you how wrong your organization was for not putting you in it, or we'll celebrate with you about how great. But
I appreciate that.
We'd love to hear how any of these strategies or ideas get executed and how they're helpful. We love stories too. So
good to go. I'll definitely be taking notes and keeping what I do documented for sure.
That's great. That's great.
All right, Corey, thanks again for joining us. And we do have some questions from the audience. I think Jay brings up a good point. Definitely not saying opening with, are you thinking about hurting yourself or did you want to kill yourself? Like, that's not how I'm suggesting at all, if I didn't make that clear. But if you're getting that feeling that somebody is definitely in some emotional distress, being the champion and being willing to be brave and stand up and actually say, have you thought about killing yourself? Like, that's a strong question, but I'm not saying at all to use that as an opener. We're just trying to, again, gauge how our people are doing with all this added stress and again, not trying to turn a blind eye to somebody that's maybe dealing with stress a certain way.
Yeah, and I like that question Jay has. How do you feel about what happened? Right? Or that's just a very easy question.
Absolutely.
You know, like, how are you feeling after that incident that you saw, or that was a tough incident? You know, how are you feeling? Like, it just normalizes it, right? It's like, it's awesome. Thank you, Jay, for that.
Even cardiac arrests, the things that we do where it can be a high stress situation. We're getting a lot of hands on a scene, having that debrief, like, hey, how did that go? And letting people talk about it. What could we have done? What went well? What could we have done better? I mean, it's really great to have those conversations.
Yeah, and even letting everybody know that they did everything they could, right? If the patient outcome wasn't what we were hoping for, you know, just everybody know, listen, we did, given the circumstances, we did the best we could. We made the right choices, you know? And I think it just gives everybody a break. Like, oh, I didn't do something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because I was talking about this yesterday, I think. I'm not sure if it was on our session or somebody I was working with coaching, but it's like during the event, during the incident, our minds are clear. We're working on the situation, you know, we're not overthinking, we're engaged, right? The problems come in is after we leave the scene or after it's over and we start running it in our head. Should I did it differently? Oh, I should have done that. What if this happened? What if that happened? And that's what gets us messed up.
Mm.
You know, it's not the actual event. It's all the thinking that we and start believing and start now questioning. And we're not even dealing with what really actually happened. We're dealing with all the what ifs. Mm. One of the coaches I've been working with says, what ifs are like multiply faster than bunnies. You know, it's what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that. And then we're lost in our own thinking. So I think that Jay's question is a good one. I think just really helping people see that they did the, you know, they made the right choices given the circumstances. And yeah, is there anything we could have done differently? Yeah, hindsight is always 20/20.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean we should beat ourselves up about it. Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
So remember, folks, we're talking about progress, not perfection here. When you're in a coaching conversation or when you're having that coaching mindset, we're all in this process to an ongoing process of learning. So to be a great coach is to be a great leader, and leadership is definitely like climbing a mountain with no top. So I hope you enjoy the climb.
Yeah, you might as well enjoy the climb, right? Might as well.
What are you, and we want folks to comment, what are you hearing from this conversation? What are you hearing or learning, or what's the takeaway? We'd love to hear you in the comments, maybe some of your biggest takeaways. And I know there's a little bit of a delay, so we'll look for folks to respond to that. We also want to talk about our program, the Keeping the Best program, how to develop and improve retention in your EMS organization. On Monday, we're going to do an entire webinar on being the leader people want to follow, a recruitment and retention webinar. But part of this whole series is kind of leading up to Lisa, where we're opening the doors to this program. We want to make sure we're positively impacting the culture of an organization. So if you want more information on Keeping the Best, usually, again, it's only open for about a week. You can get more information at emsleadershipacademy.com/keepingthebest, KTB, or KTB. And I've got some folks joining in too to say, Jay, learning that some of his issues are not just in his area. That's so true. I think so much as leaders, we tend to think that we're, oh my gosh, our organization, geez, we must be the only ones with these issues. And a lot of these issues are very universal. Trust me, we had somebody join our one of our programs yesterday from Taiwan.
Singapore.
I'm sorry, Singapore. We have had folks from Taiwan.
Yes,
from
we have. Sorry.
So, we get a lot of groups joining in from Australia, from the UK. Lisa and I laugh that we've sold books to Moose Jaw, Canada.
Five books.
All right.
They're having a book club up there. David's comment is pretty cool, and I'm thrilled, David, that he said he had a coaching moment this morning. Started sour, but by sharing the psychology behind labels we discussed yesterday and keeping an open mind, being supportive and understanding while still remaining firm in my balancing personal needs versus operational needs, I was able to diffuse the situation. Good for you.
That's awesome.
She originally shut me out and left angry, but after followed up my conversation with her through an email, her opened her eyes and she came back to discuss it with me. Isn't that great? Good for you. Way to implement.
It's a great story, David. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, David. Yeah. The other thing I'm hoping that as either people watched it today or rewatch or not rewatch. What do you call it?
Watch the replay.
Thank you. It's hard to imagine. I speak for a living sometimes. People who are watching the replay, I really, really, really would like to hear what you, not just the content of what we talked about, but was there anything you saw about coaching that maybe you didn't realize? Or was there anything that you learned about having these kinds of conversations? Obviously, this is different because the two people who we are so grateful for participating, because a coaching demonstration without coaching people sucks. So having two people to coach was fabulous, and very, very generous of them. But obviously, they came to us for that. But you're going to have that as leaders too, where people come to you, they want coaching, or they don't know they want coaching, but they got a problem and they want to solve. But everything we did today could be done just in a regular conversation, like asking somebody, do you want help with that? Getting curious with somebody when they say something, whether it's like, oh, I'm so frustrated with everything going on at home. Instead of going, yeah, me too, and going into your office with your coffee, you go, you want to say more about that? Or I have time around noon if you want to talk more about that. Like, wow, right? Like, wouldn't that make your day if that was you? So hopefully, we'd love to hear from people. Please comment, or you're always welcome to email us at support@emsleadershipacademy.com. And we hope that you join us for Monday's webinar, EMS Recruitment and Retention webinar, Being the Leader People Want to Follow. It will give you the answers to the age-old question, how do I get more people to join our organization?
Absolutely. All too often, we talk about this revolving door in an organization. People come in as quickly as they leave, and it can be very frustrating. I've completely been there. I know a lot of organizations are going through this. And Monday, we're going to talk about how do you really flip that equation on its head? How do you approach it from a retention perspective, creating a culture that people want to be around, a culture that, it's so magnetic, it just draws people in. It's so attractive. People just want to be around it. They don't want to leave.
That's right.
And then you can shift your focus after you've got that down. You can focus on how do you bring people how do you onboard people, and then how do you attract more of those type of people. And that way you're just more efficient. You're not spinning your wheels. You're not wasting your time or becoming more frustrated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm really excited about doing this on Monday. And I can't wait. So please, please, please join us on Monday and tell other people. This is by far the biggest question we get, recruitment and retention. So you're not alone. Any other questions or comments before we sign off? Again, I want to thank Corey and I want to thank Jamie for
Absolutely.
Stepping up, contributing to the community the way they did.
And if you're watching this and maybe you missed some of this, I know Betsy said she had a lot going on right now and she's thankful she can go back and watch the live. You can go to emsleadershipacademy.com/series. We're going to leave this up through the next week. We've had a lot of inquiries. How long is this material going to be available for? What we're going to do next week, we're going to take it down. We're going to package it into a bonus for anyone who does sign up for the Keeping the Best program. So folks can get access to that. We've added a bonus vault to the program where Lisa has interviewed some very experienced coaches about how do you deal with these top challenges, right? How do you deal with somebody that's just being obstinate or that's just being difficult? How do you deal with just a myriad of situations? They're short videos, and we've put those into, we're going to add this entire series to that bonus vault as well. Lisa, your book, I think we included a copy of your book.
Yep.
Bringing out the best of your employees, which is great. So there's really a lot of value we've packed into that. We've also added, if folks wanted to enroll in Keeping the Best, they can enroll with a credit card, but we've also added agency invoicing. So we're happy to invoice an agency out. So that's on the page as well as of today.
So. You're amazing. Can I say one thing at the risk of sounding I don't know, like I'm praising myself and you a lot. I just want to say that for a long time, and you can attest to this, I was opposed to putting stuff online. I was like, no, we got to do it live, all this kind of stuff. I am so proud of this program that we put together. I am really proud of this Keeping the Best program. I love it. I think that the units are powerful, but not hours and hours long. They're nice bite-sized chunks. The other thing is I want to say about the vault is I had people who are high-paid coaches, who are good friends of mine, who volunteered to participate in these videos. And we took, like you said, different topics, and you get this expert person talking about different ways of handling it, kind of like we did with Corey and Jamie today, but in specific things, that everybody's dealing with.
Right.
And it's all for one price. It's ridiculous. It's less than 1 hour of each of these coaches' hourly rates, right? That's how inexpensive this program is, comparatively speaking, to the value. So I am really proud of it, and I hope people at least look into it. You can do it at your own pace, and there's a money back guarantee, so there's really no risk. But anyway, it's going to only be open this week, starting Monday. So if you're interested, stay tuned.
Great. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. As always, we appreciate you and the work you are doing. And if there's anything we do to help you, please let us know. And we will see you around. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy.